Josh and Frankie.
What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, primates! You found Primus tracks, congratulations! Wow! After a long hiatus in which Frankie was traveling the world and I was working on my van because, that makes a difference as far as the podcast goes. We are back! I am Josh. I am here in my bunker in Southern Oregon. He has returned, I should say, to the 38th floor of Primus Tracks Towers in Mexico City. It's Frankie Barrestein.
Hi, Josh.
Whew, welcome back, Frankie. The energy's up because here we are. Primus Tracks is back. Frankie, I know you had quite an experience in the United States, and
yes,
listeners, primates.
I love the USA.
Listeners, primates, you're going to hear more about that later in the week. We're going to drop 2 episodes on you this week. As our
making up for it,
our way of saying thank you for your patience, and then we're going to get back into Les Claypool and the Holy Mackerel presents Highball with the Devil. We have a few things to take care of before we get into today's episode, which is serving as a bit of an intermission to the Holy Mackerel record. We are going to revisit our live show dissections. Is it live show or legendary show, Frankie?
Legendary show dissection. Unintentionally turned out to be LSD. We swear it was completely unintended.
I think it's appropriate today because we are going to revisit a show that takes people places. We've talked about it so many times on this here podcast, and Frankie has alluded to it over and over and over again. And we're finally going to talk about it in detail. It is the Seahawks Exhibition Show from Hallucinogenetics. June 2nd, 2004. Ooh,
wow.
Yes. Have a seat, get comfortable, because it's going to blow you away. Got a few things to take care of before we get there. First things first, we have a 5-star review, Frankie.
Awesome. Those are most welcome.
Yes, and I haven't had an opportunity to read some in a while, so there's a bunch of ways you, wonderful primates, can leave a 5-star review. You can go to Apple Podcast if you are an Apple Podcast user, leave a 5-star review there. You can also email it to us, primustrackspod@gmail.com. You could DM us on Instagram or Twitter or Threads. There's this new thing called Threads. I signed us up because why the hell not? DM us on one of those services with your 5-star review, and we will read it right here. This 5-star review comes from Greg in Oregon via Instagram, who says, "Wow, I just discovered your podcast." I'm going to pause there. He didn't just discover it today, Frankie. This message is a couple of months old almost, and I told him I would read it on the podcast. So this is about 6 weeks old. Greg says, "Wow. I just discovered your podcast, the first podcast I've ever subscribed to about 2 weeks ago, and I'm already past pork soda. I gotta find my ticket stub photo album. Somewhere in there is a stub from the Omni in Oakland around 88, as well as the Bay Area Thrash Awards and probably others. I hung out with bikers back in the 80s, so I know I saw Les with the Tommy Crank Band back then, before I knew who he was. They played a lot of biker events. My good friend saw them at DVC at least twice. Been learning a lot about this amazing group of musicians from you guys. 5 stars. Thank you, Greg in Oregon."
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
This guy got to see Les with the Tommy Crank Band.
That is incredible.
Unless he was an infant, Greg's been around for a while. And he's seen some things. So, Greg, thank you for
witness the legendary Les Paul.
That beautiful Ray Wing guitar. Greg, thank you so much for messaging. Greg also sent a few handbills for Bay Area shows, mostly with thrash bands headlining that Primus played support for. So there are all these great artifacts. So maybe we'll post those on the Instagram as well. That's our 5-star review. We also have somebody who has purchased access, I should say, or admission to, or otherwise wants to get on Captain Shiner's yacht, Frankie. I want to thank Jeff Hall for his generous donation. Jeff, you can redeem your access to Captain Shiner's yacht anytime. Frankie got his captain's license.
Thank you very much.
He'll take you for a ride anytime you want. Now, Frankie, you're not Captain Shiner, but you are allowed to pilot his watercraft. Okay. Just wanted to clear that up. Frankie, not Captain Shiner, but he gets to pilot the boat. Jeff Hall, thank you so much. So if you want to support the podcast as well, a couple of ways to do that. You could use the PayPal email address, which is primustrackspod@gmail.com if you're interested in helping us with our server costs. And of course, you can go to patreon.com/primustracks to support Josh and Frankie directly and get all kinds of cool rewards in return. Oh, there's one more thing, Frankie. Miscellaneous debris. Just entered my mind.
Oh.
I went and did it. Should I have? I don't know. I set up a Google Voice mailbox for us, Frankie. And Soya is behind this. He's not here today, but he's behind this 100%. So we have a Google Voice mailbox that I have dubbed the Ask Soya box. So if you ever have a question for Soya, you could email us, primustrackspod@gmail.com. If you want to hear your own voice on the podcast for some zany reason, all you have to do is dial 337-514-7692. It goes straight to a voicemail announcement with me, so you'll hear my voice. But once you hear the beep, leave your question or praise, wonderful memory that you have of Tim Soya after the beep, and we'll play it on the podcast. And in the near future, we're going to do an Ask Soya episode. So I'd love to load up with questions for Soya that he can answer on the podcast after listening to a bevy of voicemails. We already have one or two in the hopper, and I'm pretty excited to get more. So one more time, that's 337-514-7692. International dialers, make sure you dial a 1 before all those numbers. By the way, Frankie, I would assume it's similar in Mexico, but on your push-button phone, there's a bunch of letters above the numbers, right?
Yes.
So on my phone, 7692, the letter combinations, you can spell Soya.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I had to do that for him. So 337-514-SOYA is the Ask Soya hotline. You can drop a question there anytime. That's pretty exciting stuff. I might call in drunk a couple of times and ask some questions, Frankie, at 2 a.m. And Frankie, maybe you could disguise your voice and ask him some questions too.
I just may do that.
I could just hear Frankie calling in, and I'm going to know it's you, but if you call in and go, "This is Carl." Question for Soya. Be exciting stuff. All right, so all that great stuff. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Greg from Oregon, and thank you, Soya, for being game for the Ask Soya hotline. We are talking about a legendary show. We're going to dissect it today. Seahawks Exhibition Show, June 2, 2004. This is Primus on the Hallucinogenetics Tour. Frankie, can you give us an overview? What are we going to get into today?
Okay, prior to discussing the show itself, Josh, I was interested in getting the context cleared up with you. Maybe you are more familiar with this venue. I don't know. So I was trying to search for an actual photograph of the venue, and I think I might have found it, but there's a bit of confusion here, because when you search for the Seahawks Exhibition Hall, you get some results about an exhibition center. And according to the internet, the Seahawks Stadium was called that way when it opened in 2002, but it is currently named Lumen Field.
Right.
So I see a photograph of what appears to be a venue, and a medium-sized venue for all kinds of events, but it's labeled Lumen Field.
Right.
Could it be that this is where the concert took place back in 2004?
I believe so. I have been to that stadium complex a number of years ago now, but I walked through a huge indoor space adjacent to or right inside the stadium itself, and it looked like that may be the space that Primus played there. Now, the stadium has changed names a couple of times, but at the time, I think it was Seahawks Exhibition Hall. And then, of course, they threw out some sponsorship things, so it's Lumen. What I don't know what it is now, but Lumen. Okay, so it was in use on game day when I went to a Seattle Seahawks professional football game.
So what I am assuming from the name of the venue at the time is that, as well as hosting the venue for the concerts, they also had an exhibition going on related to all the Seahawks memorabilia, right?
I couldn't tell you that. I have no idea, but it's a decent inference. I'll tell you that. So you could walk around and look at Seattle Seahawks legendary players, I guess. I don't know. Say hi to Steve Largent and then say, "Hey, gotta go, Steve. I'm going to see Primus," I guess, or something like that. Are you asking because you wonder if the acoustics of that place are contributing to what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I was wondering how much the actual location influenced the tone that we hear on the show, which I think is quite unique, and it really stands out to the rest of the recordings. You would assume that because these are soundboards, all of them would sound the same. But in reality, each of these shows has a very, very particular sound. And what I think makes Seahawks stand out, well, not only the performance, which is amazing, and the song and the track selection, but just the fact that the tone, the sound that they achieved at this show, I think it's unlike anything else I've ever heard in terms of live recordings from the band.
It certainly does stand out in that regard. And for context, of course, we're talking about the Hallucinogenetics tour. Primus had gone on the Tour de Fromage in 2003 and into 2004. Playing 40.
And they decided to extend the tour by performing Frizzle in its entirety.
Right.
This tour was much short. This leg was much shorter than Tour de Fromage, but they did cover quite a decent amount of places, and it did spawn the live DVD.
Yes, it did. The Hallucinogenetics live DVD. So we had the Reformation. This was the first time in 2003, the first time in 4 years Primus had done anything, and it was the first time in 8 years that it was the trio of Les, Larry, and Tim doing anything. So 2003 was a big year, and Frankie, I've mentioned it before that I went to the Chicago and Milwaukee Fromage shows, and the energy was just incredible. People were just out of their minds, and the wailing and gnashing of teeth and the rioting in the streets was just nuts for Primus, at these venues. And they were just greeted by these raucous crowds who were so happy to see them again. So they did 40 odd dates, I think, for Fromage, and then turned around a couple of months later and decided, well, we played Caesar Cheese in its entirety. Let's play Frizzle Fry in its entirety. And they had a smaller run for those shows. This one is only the fourth show in the run. So I do wonder, was the band playing around with settings and pedals and that sort of thing? Because they had been selling these soundboards on primuslive.com, our dearly departed primuslive.com. I had to go on the Wayback Machine, Frankie, the other night and get some stills from it because I was missing it, something fierce. But yes, your point that these soundboards generally sound consistent, city to city, night to night, performance to performance, they generally do. But there is something special about this one, although I don't use the word special to describe it. I use the word evil. Just given the tonality of what's happening. I don't know. Maybe they went to the Fisherman's Market in Seattle and got some really good sushi-grade tuna, and that amped them all up. For this night, I couldn't tell you, but this is a very special one.
If we also analyze the timeline, it is located between two legendary presentations, because the night prior they performed Portland, Metropolitan Expo Center. Another show with a very peculiar sound, a really interesting set list, and to date, the only instance where they have performed a full YYZ before To Defy the Laws of Tradition.
Oh, nice.
Then we have Seahawks, and then the following show is none other but the legendary Red Rocks performance from 2004, where they went completely over time with the set list. So it is strategically placed between two more legendary shows, which just speaks volumes about the quality of this tour. When you can pick so many incredible performances night to night, I think you're looking at a very special run of shows.
Yeah, this Hallucinogenetics has a lot of great performances and of course, as you say, legendary venues. When I looked at the Wayback Machine, what they showed on the left-hand side is they showed the top 5 downloads for a certain set of days, and this Berkeley show from May 30th, 2004 was in the top 5 for all the snapshots I looked at. So that one was an extremely popular download as well. So this Hallucinogenetics tour had that Berkeley, Portland, Seattle, Red Rocks. What a run. They played Bonnaroo that year, and a lot of people cite that one as a great performance.
And Japan for the last time.
Right, and the Fuji Rock Festival, July 31st, 2004. And then, of course, prior to that, they had wound up Hallucinogenetics in Chicago, Illinois on June 26th, which was the DVD recording as well.
Amazing.
A lot of great stuff. And they played Radio City Music Hall in New York. My gosh, what a tour. They had a great couple of years there in 03-04. So really big things happening with the Primus Reformation and playing Seas of Cheese in its entirety and then Frizzle Fry in its entirety and just taking people back. And going out there without an opener and playing 2 legitimate sets. They were doing 2.5 hours just themselves, give or take. And that's pretty freaking great, and with the production values that they were putting behind it.
Some shows did reach the 3-hour mark.
What a great tour.
Interesting bit of trivia, Josh. Yeah. Just before I forget, Maurice Caldwell Jr. sat in during Seahawks 2004 to tell some jokes. And if you look up his resume, other than some musical contributions, he's also credited with the illustration for the Bucket of Bernie Brains album, The Big Eyeball in the Sky.
The cover art he is?
Yes, that's right. And I think his intervention makes sense in the timeline, considering that Les jumped right into the Bucket of Bernie Brains tour as soon as the Primus one was finished.
Oh, yeah. I suppose they would have already cut the record before Primus went back out. I think that was the timeline. I think they put that record together in just a couple weeks at Les's house, and then Primus went out on the road, and then the record was ready, and Bernie Brains went out on the road. Okay, that makes sense. So
Maurice telling some jokes on stage is logical in that aspect, I guess.
I suppose so. And by the way, our source material is the soundboard recording from primuslive.com, which is now posted to YouTube, not by us, but by somebody else. And if you search for Primus, Seattle, Washington, 62-4, it'll come right up, and you'll be able to hear this soundboard recording. So the time codes that you're going to hear are relevant to that YouTube posting.
Just one last thing about it.
You sound like Columbo.
If you notice the cover art.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the cover art. Tell us about that guy.
Art. So we see this guy with like this really incredible mustache, right? Which looks untestworthy. And I guess it was because, I don't know if you recall, on the Blame It on the Fish DVD, there's a portion where you can see some kind of vintage mustache custom thing going on. And you can see these guys with these really incredible mustaches and beard. Do you recall that segment?
I do, because I think I recall that Adam and Zoltron were just goofing around at that convention and taking a lot of video, and I think they became fascinated with very long and very coiffed and styled facial hair. So I know that, yes. I know, and of course Zoltron did all the work, artwork for the soundboard recordings that were burned and sold right after the show. You could exit the venue, go to the merch booth, and buy the CD of that night's soundboard recording.
And purchase your show.
And purchase your show as you walked out. Or you could go to the website and buy it after the fact digitally. And they also provided this cover art and tray inlay business with your download. And so Zoltron did 60-odd different designs for each show, and he decided to do this this beard guy, and I forget his name, Jim Chevalier, I think, or something like that. And of course, he used this guy, and this particular photo of this guy was the basis for some Zoltron pieces later on, where he had some skull iconography and bearded skulls and bearded people with top hats and that sort of thing, looking pretty darn fancy.
And believe it or not, I have a really crazy... The first time that I saw Primus live 10 years ago, you recall how I had a backstage pass that I won through an online competition.
Yeah.
I vividly remember going backstage, and before they came out to sign the autographs and take pictures, there were all kinds of crew members and people walking by. I recognized Brad. I think I spotted a couple of familiar faces as well that we still see on the road nowadays. And I saw a couple of guys with those crazy mustaches walking around. So I don't know if they became part of the crew or what, but I was really amazed that they were there. I don't know if one of them, it could be the guy from the cover. I'm not sure, but they did have crazy facial hair.
Oh, that's a good question for Soya. He might know who was sporting crazy facial hair with Primus.
Yeah.
Maybe those mustaches were inspirational to Les on those tours, and that's why he was jamming things out so well.
It very well could be.
That's a lot of testosterone at work, Frankie. I should know. So, Seattle, Washington, June 2nd, 2004, Hallucinogenetics Tour. It looks like we're opening up with Here Come the Bastards.
Here come the bastards. And how about setting some tone by listening to the intro?
Listen to that crowd, man. So I don't know what's going on there. If they were just all on hot mics or the soundboard was really peaking that night, but dang, that is
right
thunderous.
Off the gate is pure aggression, right?
Yeah. Wow. That tone is fan-freaking-tastic.
The drums are so powerful.
Yeah, and that's what always... Now, I don't listen to a lot of live recordings. I will put that out there now, but when I come back to this one, I'm always blown away by how crunchy this soundboard is. Because even on the Fromage and Genetics ones, none of them even come this close. This is pure power.
And it must be a combination of both things, right? I mean, the way the venue was set up for the recording, the acoustics, but also the performance itself. I think they are really, really going for the aggression.
Maybe they just woke up and chose violence that day.
Yeah, exactly.
To quote the kids. Well, let's hear the bridge, too, because, of course,
the bridge is always interesting because you never know what crazy thing Les is going to do with the bass, right?
Well, it seems like he's feeling his oats this night, so I can't wait to hear it. Oh, that tone, man. Here they come. Ah, that's a great curveball there to throw in. Here they come. I've played this song a million times. Here they come. That's great. And it's funny because I was expecting, because of the aggressive tone that they're setting, I'm thinking, oh, he's going to and then just go wild.
Exactly.
But
exactly, because that happened so many times during the tour and ever since, right? But
yeah,
it's interesting how they just went for something completely unexpected, like something rather melodic, right? Very atmospheric.
Yeah, brought it down to that level. Wow. And then here they come is how I'm going to start yelling it at the shows now, though, because that is infectious. So they're already playing with the audience, playing with each other, and having a lot of fun. And I think one of the things is, in recent years, we know that Tim Alexander has been using smaller cymbals, and they kind of mute them a bit with, I don't remember what's behind the cymbal on Tim's racks, but when he hits a cymbal, it fades a lot more quickly than it normally would because there's something on the back to take on that vibration. So when you're hearing those crash cymbals in this mix, though, they are nice and loud and strong. And so there's a bit of a wash. So I think that's contributing to what we're hearing here. But my God, that Carl Thompson sounds great, and Larry is crunchy.
On fire.
On this one. What's next?
American Life is always fascinating in terms of the jam portion. So let's hear how they were jamming this song in particular that night, which I think is really interesting because you wouldn't normally equate American Life with aggression, right?
Not necessarily until the very end, right? Our favorite part.
Exactly, until the coda.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think even the jam was kind of in your face. So let's check it out.
Lur was doing something really cool there, along with what Les was doing. And that, yes, because often Larry will kind of stay off to the side and just give you little bits and hints there, but he was front and center on that one. The other thing I'm noticing, Frankie, is that, remember K.O. said he called the Carl Thompson basses finesse instruments?
Yes.
And I thought, oh, that's an interesting descriptor. But of course, after thinking about it and knowing that K.O. knows what he's talking about, he's correct. But I hear the finesse, but I also hear Les really attacking it tonight here at Seahawks Exhibition Hall. So there's more, a little more grittiness to it tonight, because I don't know if he's hitting harder or if he turned up his gain or what in the world's happening, but there is a little more grittiness to it tonight.
Yes. And this is just a highlight, but if you listen to the full track, which is over 10 minutes long, there are several sections where what Les is doing with the bass, it's really interesting because there are some passages that have interesting melodies, like really interesting improvisations, but there are also parts where he lets loose and it's just like very atonal, very noisy, kind of, it's difficult to describe, like non-music, even for some brief moments.
That makes me want to listen to the whole thing. And I'm not known for sitting through, 10 to 14 minute versions of American Life, but I probably should for this one. I know I've listened to this one in its entirety, but I haven't listened to it in a while. I'm going to go ahead to the next time code, 11 minutes and 30 seconds, and I'm going to try to...
The rewards.
Yeah, I need to say these time codes so people know where to listen to. 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Frankie's notes say envelope delight. Oh, I love that song.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Rad. That's pretty rad. I can get behind that for envelope filter. Raise your hand if you were delighted. Okay, 1, 2, 6, 7, 9, 13. There's a fair number of people here who were delighted by that, Frankie. Nicely done.
Let's check what the coda sounds like, because I think it's particularly amazing on this show.
Are you saying they're going to surpass that crescendo with this? Noising it up. There's the call down. Whew, boy, that was nice. And then let's move ahead. I didn't go all the way to the outro because I wanted to hear that part, but let's see if they can top it at the very end here.
Yes. There's that ride you love.
Oh, I'm digging it. Wow. Blur.
If that isn't the best American Life I've ever heard, it's definitely in the top 5 or top 3. Absolutely mind-blowing performance.
Wow, that was gritty. I'm going to keep saying that because all of these sound so gritty. But that one certainly carried its weight with that middle part with the crescendo, and then, still bringing it at the very end so it wasn't anticlimactic. What a great performance this is so far, and we're only 15 minutes into the show.
Yeah.
Wow. So after American Life, which is a live staple, we get to say hi to our friend Fats.
Fats. Fantastic.
What do you have for this one, pal?
Oh yes, my friend Fats is the next one. So how about listening to an example of the Hail verse? I think this is also an interesting contrast because you have this very aggressive piece of music backed by Les doing a full falsetto.
Right.
Let's hear what it sounded like that night.
I think he was hitting it. He was pretty close if he wasn't right on.
Yes.
Nicely done, Les, because some of these other soundboards, he's not all the way on top of it, we'll say. So good for him. He was hitting it tonight. He was dialed in. And that falsetto is tough. I was actually just talking to my wife about this, who's a very accomplished singer and is damn talented. And she said it's really hard and really difficult. And I'm not saying Les does this, but she's saying it's very difficult to match your singing voice, me, so that you sound the same when you're singing normally as to when you're singing falsetto. Me. Obviously, I don't sound the same. But it's, first of all, singing falsetto is super fun because I actually can get up there and sing those notes that I couldn't normally sing. And plus, there's no risk because you're already doing a silly voice. But I'm just a big fan of it. But for people to be able to hit falsetto notes is another thing. You know, singing falsetto is one, but sounding like you're actually singing is another. And Les did pretty well right there with Fats.
And what do you think about the music?
It's a little bit different live. I've noticed, and that's fine. It's not like I want them to recreate the notes and the record 100%. But I've always liked this one live, even though it doesn't sound exactly like it does on the record. And I'm okay with those variances because maybe they didn't remember it correctly, or wanted to change something after the fact, or found something that worked better. If that makes sense.
Josh, can you give me 1 second?
Yes, I can. Well, Frankie's gone. Probably out to get an American Coca-Cola. I can tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Yoo-Hoo, the greatest drink of all time.
Sorry, I'm back.
Excellent.
How about the guitar solo, which I think is our favorite part of the song?
Let's do it. I like how he holds on to that at the end there before going into this part.
It's so progressive, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. It threw me off a little bit, that solo did, but then when he went into the part that ascends, man, and I love that part on the record because there's so much pathos into it, and I don't normally think of Larry as an emotional guitar player or one who elicits a lot of emotions in his playing, but this one always does for me. There's just something that lifts it up, and I think I even used the word soaring when we talked about this track, the studio track. It does. He elevates it there. And Les was doing something cool under the first part of Larry's solo that he doesn't do on the record, so there was a little bit of improv there, an alteration at least, that was quite effective.
Yeah.
Always great to hear those animals tracks. Animals should not act like people, that is, tracks in these live performances. And I don't know. I've been saving up my pennies, Frankie, so hopefully I can throw a sack of them at Les and get him to play these songs again. So there's FATS. That one was great. And next we're going to turn our attention to another life staple, good old Mr. Krinkle.
Our favorite part, the outro.
Oops. Let me get the right time code here. Stop it, you. And then I'll say something. Love the outro. Always have loved the outro. And as I think I told you last year, Frankie, saw Primus in Vail after the South Park show. And I went with an old high school friend of mine who I hadn't seen in probably 15, if not 20 years. And she really dug the show. But the only song she didn't like because of the video content was Mr. Krinkle. She didn't like it. And so it made me like the song even more, if that were at all possible. Let's hear the demented outro. I went too far back. Let's try that again. Although I could have just let that play and people would have been pretty happy with it. Senor Krinkle! Well, a couple of things there. I love hearing Tim's drumming on that outro when he starts to let it go some. And the other thing, I really miss Larry's PRS because that sounded so porky. That tone was just absolutely perfect. Now he's getting it back with these Gibsons. I gotta say, Dan over at Gibson Custom has Larry sounded fantastic these days. But man, and I don't know. We should ask Dan sometime if he was chasing something with the Gibsons he built for Larry because Larry's kind of got that sound back and it's wonderful. And then after Krinkle,
did you hear?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Did you also hear the upright having some kind of effect on it? I think it was. I don't know how to describe it, but it didn't sound completely acoustic, right?
He always makes it a little dirty, especially on Krinkle, but there was something, I wasn't really listening to the upright all that closely, so he could have put something on there that was unusual. But that upright, especially with this tune, and given the tone that they have on this evening in Seattle, this was an appropriate selection because this tune is downright scary sometimes. It's not like horror movie scary, it's clown scary, and that's scary enough for most of us, I think. So good for them for including it. But then after Krinkle, Frankie, we get to turn it up to 11.
Amazing. So let's check out the intro for some really compelling drums.
Uh-oh, I don't have a time code for the intro. I'm going to have to look for it here.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. It just says intro, but we'll find it. It's right after Krinkle, right? We should be fine. One hopes. There you go. Ah, Tim's so good. That was nasty. All right, he is so good, man. When he's on those octobans, just rolling like that, and then coming off of that octoban to hit some other accents. That man is so precise, and he's always in control. And that's, Soy has said that, and most people who we've talked to have played with Tim have said he's just always on time, always so precise, and he just hits the post every single time, And that's something, I think we talked about this for the South Park performances. Tim was dialed in, he's playing a bunch of songs he'd never played before, and they didn't rehearse that much from what we know, but he was just hitting every single note, and was taking every cue. He knew exactly where he was at any given moment, which is difficult to do when you're learning new music. So good for him, man. Gosh sakes. And that just sounded like a wonderful intro. He's given it to us. How about 43 minutes and 20 seconds for the epic jam in 11? Which we tend
to forget that 11 also gets jammed quite a bit, right?
I was just gonna say that we don't normally think of it that way because they play it straight a lot, but they can jam it out when they want to, and I guess Seattle got it good again. Yes, that was beautiful. And nothing says Primus like, hey, let's jam out in 11. Most bands can't jam out in 4. Gosh sakes. That was outstanding. That's a jam I hadn't heard in some time. That was pretty sweet. Looks like next they played a song that you don't normally hear Primus play. A little ditty called My Name is Mud. That's a joke, of course. It looks like we're going to 50 minutes and 55 seconds for the guitar solo and the outro. Oh, and we have to count the reps, Frankie, of course. We have to hear how many times they run that outro. Let's give Mud a try. I mean, if all these other tunes are as aggressive as they sound, I think Mud's going to blow the roof off of the thing. 1, 2,
2,
3,
3,
4,
4,
5,
5,
6,
6,
7,
7,
8,
8,
9, 10. 10? That's short.
That's short, but compelling.
Wow. Well, they took up so much time with that sweet 11 jam that they had to shorten somewhere, so why not compact the mud outro? Wow. Mud, once again, sounds particularly dirty. I am really loving the this trip down memory lane to Seahawks Exhibition Hall, Frankie. Wow, there's so much more to go through. So let's zip ahead into the Frizzle Fry set. It looks like you have quite a laundry list of things for us to listen to on Groundhog's Day.
Yes, Groundhog's Day is actually my favorite song from this concert. I think what they achieved with this one is particularly impressive in all aspects. Just what they were, the way that they laid down the actual track, the studio portions, and then what they did in terms of improvisation. If you listen to all of these soundboards, you will notice that there are some similarities between some of the songs in terms of the lengthier passages. In the case of Groundhog's Day, some of the parts that I've highlighted here, you can actually hear them on other performances. But the way that they perform them here in particular is absolutely amazing. So we have quite a list to go through. So I was thinking we could begin with what I perceive as some kind of buckethead vibe in Larry's guitar at 1 hour with 12 minutes and 40 seconds. Tell me if you agree.
All right. How about this? I'm going to, I'm going to start there. But we have so many time codes. How about I just read them off and then we play the next 2.5 minutes so people can hear all the things at once. So 112.40 for the buckethead vibe, to 113.20 for bass staccatos. Ooh, very nice. 113.26 for a bass groove, and 1 minute and 14 seconds for a change in tempo. And then we hear at 1 hour, 15 minutes and 20 seconds, bass aggression up to the guitar, descending harmony. Whew, that's a lot to listen for. I hope you guys have a checklist out there, but we're gonna go for it. 3, 2, 1, and hey, now I got it. Oh yeah, Thai noodles.
Exactly.
sound. I like that build. Progression path. I could let this play for a long time. This is outstanding. They are going so many places with this jam, and my gosh, that 1 hour 14 minutes mark, that that stop stuff that
it's
Herb was
incredible.
doing, and then just each of them are just kind of taking the lead in different parts and taking them to different places here. Wow. This is one of the
and they don't overplay any of the parts, so they really keep you on your toes, because just as you're starting to groove with something, they jump right into the next thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're looking for something, but they're finding gold everywhere they go. At least, in my opinion. So they're like, that was cool, and then now we're gonna play this, and this is cool. Then we're gonna play this, and this is cool. And these are those tapes they can go back to. Excuse me, to find jam material that they might want to use later on.
Exactly.
And some of this stuff, man, ooh, boy.
And what I really like about this last portion that we're going to hear is that what Les is doing with the bass, it's kind of his signal for Lur and Tim to finish off the track. You'll hear it. It's really cool. It's a really cool bass part.
Here it comes. Distortion, baby.
Isn't that the most outstanding Groundhog's Day you've ever heard?
It's gotta be tops. It's in the top something. I don't know. I don't have them all listed out, Frankie. However, I want to now, and I think this would be very high on the list. Outstanding. They took us so many places. Wow. I don't need. How do you even top that? Well, I guess we forward to Mr. Knowitall at 1 hour, 24 minutes, 25 seconds. And we're going to hear a portion of Mr. Knowitall, because why the hell not? What do you got on this one, Frankie?
I think it's pretty coherent with the rest of the set. It's a particularly aggressive Mr. Knowitall. The most interesting portion, and my favorite portion, of course, is the second part that we're going to hear, the one that leads up to the heaviest part of the song, because they do something very peculiar there. But prior to that, let's just get a general taste of what the song sounded like that night.
Whoops. Yes, that is sounding good.
It's chaotic, but it's perfectly executed.
That's sounding good. And so we're going to now hear this is 1 hour, this is 1:25:30, and we'll go for about 90 seconds. And this is our heavy part, correct?
This leads up to the heavy part, and if you listen to many other renditions of Mr. Know-It-all live, the heavy part, of course, it's brutal, but you can make out the notes, right? You can hear what Les is doing. But in this one, it's so distorted and it's so heavy that it's just a wall of noise.
A heavy morass. Brought to you by Primus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, heavy. Heavy distortion. That's great.
That's worthy of a mosh pit, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was pretty damn heavy. He laid it on extra thick there in that last iteration. Wow. I don't think he does that every single time.
No, in many occasions, he continues playing the heavy portion with the same tone that he used for the rest of the song.
Yeah.
So this is quite an interesting exception where he goes into full distortion.
He went full something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Good for him, man. Yeah, they are bringing it this night. So that even that Mr. Know-It-all gets in on the action as if it could get heavier. I guess it can. That leads us to one of the heaviest iterations of Primus you're ever going to hear, which is the climax of the track Frizzle Fry.
An absolute showstopper at any concert where you're lucky to get Frizzle Fry, the climax.
They were lucky enough to get it tonight because they were playing the full record, those little devils. Let's hear how they eviled it up tonight. Yeah, Herb really pushed that when they went into double time there. Excuse me, for Larry solo. That was pretty fantastic. And man, just bringing it. And I remember that it is essentially a drone note there for less, and so he can do a lot of improvisations underneath Larry's solo, and he does some really cool stuff there. So there's a lot to listen to in that moment. Man, once again, heavy. Goodness. Well, that leads us into John to the Fisherman, and I'm actually going to forward to the bridge, because I just want to keep it heavy. How's that sound, Frankie?
That sounds great. It's always interesting to hear how they're going to approach it, because the studio version is so technical and so well executed that when it's translated live, you're always on the lookout for how they're going to do it.
Looking forward. Nailed it. I think that they did just fine. That is just fine. What a vintage. Spunky, yet sweet.
Yeah.
I went to a wine dinner the other night, Frankie. That's why I'm talking like this. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
It's a playful dish. That was really nice. They nailed it. And you're right. That track, I always forget about the intricacies of that bridge. And when they recreate it live and nail it like they did there, so impressive. Nicely done. Now, this also is the heaviest Michael Malloy you've ever heard. Ready? No, I'm kidding. We're going to go ahead to pudding time here. And we're at 1 hour and 58 minutes on the dot. And what are we going to hear here, Frankie?
The portion that leads us, the bridge that leads us into the heavy part, of course. We're really focused on the heavy parts tonight. But it's inevitable. Some of those are our favorites. So, again, what can we say? Particularly aggressive performance of Pudding Time. Absolutely on point. Let's hear what it sounded like.
Oh, that's screaming, Larry. Jeez. That sounded pretty good, because when I was thinking of the Goblins tour where everything was a little drier, I think, and it didn't have that same resonance as what we're hearing right now. And so that's a welcome return here to this tune for me. Sounds nice. And as was customary on the Fromage and Hallucinogenetics tours, we get an extended drum solo from Tin Alexander. And if you would forward it,
this is a particularly long one. And
we're going to listen to the whole thing, front and backwards, and then. But if you do forward to about 2:13:15, I'm forwarding to 2:13:20 because that's what YouTube wants me to do, and I'm too lazy to be too precise. Let's hear what Tim's cooking up here tonight. forgot about those effects he put on for his solos. Yeah. There's a little whamola.
Yes. And this is a unique performance because we got the mola.
Right, yeah. Let's hear them together. I like that. There's some good sounds happening there from the whamola and from the drums. Yes. And I said I've forgotten that Tim had that effects kit going with his drums throughout those solos to really give it a lot of body so that one man is making all this noise, which is fantastic. And then Les layers up that whamola and makes some goofy-ass sounds to go with it. And
perhaps, I mean, this is an exception. The whamola didn't happen that regularly. So
yeah,
perhaps we should just take a moment to realize how herv was left there on stage for 10 plus minutes night after night to fill that space with a drum solo. And he was always on point, you know?
Yeah.
The thing about, I mean, I've heard a lot of people criticize drum solos during concerts because they think it's just like this random thing, you know? Like sometimes it tends to be overplaying. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense. But I mean, if you listen to these, if you really sit down and go through these drum solos that he was playing night after night, first of all, you will not listen to two of them that are completely identical. They are all unique, which I think speaks volumes about Tim's creativity and skill as a drummer. Secondly, they are massively entertaining. They keep you on the edge for the 10 minutes or so that they go on. And I think it takes a lot of, how could I describe it? I mean, it takes a lot of talent and also a lot of confidence as a musician to tackle something like that, no? Like just interrupt a set with a drum solo that goes for over 10 minutes and have the audience absolutely love it.
That's the qualifier right there, to have the audience love it. And that's the challenge. And I think Herb passed that test every single night. I don't think I've ever walked out of a show where somebody went, man, that Herb, not that great. You know, I've never heard that before.
Never.
He played too much. So that's a testament to him. Interesting drum solos. Sounds like an oxymoron, but they exist. And then right after this drum solo, Frankie, he has to play spaghetti western.
Yeah.
No rest for the Tims. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's hear the intro because it's one of our favorite things. This is one of the cooler ones I've ever stinking heard, with the remnants of the whamola. And then Herb goes into the beat without the hi-hat, then he kicks it in with the hi-hat, then he gives you some syncopation underneath it, and then Larry is just cutting through like a knife. That's heavenly. That's a sound ordinance violation for most people playing it really loud in their neighborhoods, but I love it. That sounds wonderful. That is chaotic and fantastic. Oh my gosh, I love it. I don't know what were they feeling that night, and whatever it was, bottle it and sell it.
Yeah.
God, it's freaking Kratom. This is Kratom in musical form.
Did you just inadvertently quote Reba?
I did unknowingly, because I'm not sure what you're even talking about.
The Fish song, Reba.
Oh, never heard it.
Buy it, tag it.
No, and how dare you accuse me, sir? You're more likely to hear me say, boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew than, yeah. Wow, spaghetti. We're also going to forward, by the way, that intro starts at 2:17:40 on your time code. Also, somebody was kind enough to put the time codes for the start of every single track in the comments. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And we're going to forward to 2 hours, 23 minutes flat for some more spaghetti, because as we know, this one falls off the rails in a beautiful way. Ending. That's pretty nasty and evil sounding too. Man.
In terms of Harold, we're going to write to the second chorus prior to the breakdown, because this is something else that we always look forward to as fans, right? We want to hear how Liz is going to do the breakdown.
Of course. So second chorus prior to the breakdown is at 2:27:30, and we're going to have a good time with that one. I think part of why I really like this one, Frankie, is Lur is so present in the mix, and I'm not saying he's not in other ones, but I think somebody bumped him up a little bit. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's true.
Yeah, and more Lur is a good thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with more Lur. Like, you could just keep piling him on. You know what?
Yes.
He's like gravy. Lur is like gravy. The more you have, the happier you are.
Yes, please.
Even if it's overflowing off your plate onto the floor, the dog's getting it, and the dog shouldn't have that much salt, it's going to be fine. The dog's going to be fine. Okay? Just chill. Let the dog have its gravy. I don't know where this is going, Frankie. We better go to the breakdown. We're at 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 30 seconds for the jam.
A taste of the jam.
Yeah, we're going to a taste of the jam. Dip your little finger in. Lots of food metaphors today, which I guess, Primus does it too. Tim and Les are in such lockstep there. They're feeling each other out very well and making a great foundation. And Larry gets to solo over that madness. What a
I've
treat.
always said that the Harold jam portion is Pink Floyd-esque.
They were starting to go there, for sure. Yeah. And that's where Les has gone a lot in the last few years. going that Floydian psychedelic route, proggy route. Fantastic once again.
Now they could have picked any song for the encore, and fortunately they went out on a high note, emphasizing the aggression present throughout the show with none other than Jerry was a race car driver.
Yeah, why not go out on a high note with one of your more beloved tunes, which is quite up-tempo? You know, I've always wondered about this tour, actually, because it seems like Jerry was just a tad slower than on the record. That's not a criticism by any stretch, but it sounds pretty good at that tempo, as well as what's on the record. I don't think it suffers from being a tad slower. And who knows? It could be the difficulty of playing it live. It could be wanting to get it right. Who knows? But that's the tempo at which they play it, and have really for the last 20 years. So let's forward to our last snippet, 2:41:28. Got to end on a heavy note. That's how you end it. Wow. First Incredible, of all, right? I love the vocal delivery. 22 years old! Man, that was great. He was kind of channeling his radio voice there. 22 years old! That was pretty cool. And then, hey, end on a heavy note. This Exhibition Hall, Seahawks Exhibition Hall, June 2nd, 2004, front to back is just
insane.
A tour de force. And if they took this soundboard and cleaned it up for a live release, now I know lately Les has been talking about there's a bunch of Primus live recordings on the way to be released officially for public consumption. You could just bottle this show and gussy it up and release it. You're going to make a lot of people happy.
Bag it. Tag it.
Boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew. Yeah. Everybody's going to buy it. Well, we've danced around this show for quite some time, talking about its legendary status, and I hope we shed some light on it for you primates out there. This is the one. This is Frankie's top live show, correct?
Yes, definitely. If I had to pick just one Primus show to listen to for the rest of my life, it would be this one, for sure.
I don't think you can go wrong. Good choice. I'm gonna have to put it into consideration. That's for certain. So once again, you can find that soundboard on YouTube. Primus, Seattle, Washington, 6204 will get you there. There's all the time codes. I think what we'll do is we'll post the time codes on our socials as well, if you want to hear those highlights as well. That's all we've got for Seahawks Exhibition Hall. We finally covered it. we'll have more LSD for you at another time. That's Legendary Show Dissections at another time. Frankie, thank you so much for putting that together for us. That was a blast.
Thank you, Josh. It was fantastic going down memory lane with that incredible show.
Primates, thank you so much for listening. We'll have a special something for you later in the week. And then next week, we're back to Les Claypool and the Holy Mackerel presents Highball with the Devil with The Awakening. Later days.
Willie Mace.